We've got a few questions here from forum users from Port Adelaide Associated Forums. Enviable Tradition has asked, what is the best way to build functional strength without losing endurance?
Well, it's a question people have been asking and trying to answer for a while. What I would say is to not try and lift too heavier weights and try and be too cute with your exercises in the gym. Keep them fairly simple and make sure that while you're training your strength stuff, you're also training your endurance as well. Otherwise, your endurance will suffer if you're only concentrating on the gym.
Would you say that the ideal footballer has a pretty good balance of both? Or
I think so.
Yep.
I think sometimes perhaps the media and people can think that bigger is better and bigger equals stronger, and that's absolutely not the case. One of the strongest people that I've ever worked with is Fernando Torres at Liverpool, and he was not in any way, shape or form a big guy, but in terms of the strength that he could produce was just phenomenal. So that goes for other people back in my time at Port Adelaide, like a Sean Burgoyne and those types of people. Amazingly strong, but you don't have to be big to be strong.
Yanis, again from a forum, has asked, are you going to concentrate more on kinetic training involving all of the muscle groups required for tackling, explosive power and running and so on, rather than isolating individual muscle groups for size, or are you going to focus on that combination of both?
Absolutely, the combination. Certain players need to have isolated muscle adjustments, I guess, in their strength profile, and we'll test for that. But as a general rule, we'll be working on the whole body rather than just isolated muscles.
Shehu has asked, how far do Liverpool players run in a match, forwards, midfielders and defenders, and how does that compare to the AFL?
Very similarly, with the number of rotations in the AFL now, the time that people are on the park is a lot less, so it's quite similar to soccer now. Strikers in soccer would run anywhere between 10 and 11 kilometres, midfielders up around 12 kilometres, and defenders a bit closer to 10 than 11 kilometres, and that's fairly similar to those corresponding positions in AFL. The difference is the number of changes of direction and perhaps a high intensity running is a little bit higher in AFL than what it is in soccer.
The game has increased in speed since even you were here at Port Adelaide last. Or have you, from your observations, or any observations you've had, noticed an increase in the amount of running that even the defenders in AFL are doing now compared to 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the big one, is the defenders and the half forwards who come up and play in the midfield have to run like midfielders and have to be trained like midfielders. So there's no doubt that's something that's changed since I've been involved.
As Guardian has asked, how will you take our players out of their training comfort zones to challenge them both mentally and physically?
It's a good question. I think both of those are really important, both the mental and physical aspects, and the way you try and do that is I guess, put them in situations similar to what they might experience in a game, and then you can assess how they respond to that, because if your training is easy, then you won't be able to handle a game situation. But if you make your training hard, both mentally and physically, how we do that is just by different drills, altering their training, different running patterns, things like that, which will just hopefully take them out of that comfort zone.
Last year, this year, this season just gone, the club went to New Zealand for a training camp pre-season, and there was a lot of whitewater rafting and mountain bike riding. How does that, in a completely different environment to the on-field scenario, I suppose, be used by a fitness team to put the players out of their comfort zone and really bring it back to the footy aspect? Yeah,
they're great things to do, those sort of camps, because you really can see people out of their comfort zone and you really can test them both mentally and physically. The transfer of that into football, I think, is pretty good, because I think characters are often revealed in those really difficult situations. And that's going to be the same thing on the football field. So I think those things can work really well. They're not absolutely necessary, but I think they're nice to do every so often. You couldn't do them each year because the players would start to expect certain things and predict things, and one of the benefits of those is that they're unpredictable.
And last but not least, from PAF, who's again on one of the forums, Boak, Gray, Hartlett and Pittard have had a history of soft tissue injuries, and they are 4 of our most important players. Do you believe that with the right training regime, these issues will be confined to the past?
Look, it's hard to know. There's many reasons why people have soft tissue injuries. It can be genetic, it can be training. There's a famous paper that marries up soft tissue injuries with earthquakes. So people have been trying to solve that for some period of time, but hopefully with the right training that we can get those guys on the park more often than they're not.